In the polished marble halls of justice, even the whispers carry weight. A glass of champagne shatters against pristine white walls. A phone rings at 3 a.m. with news that will demolish an empire. The flash of cameras captures the exact moment when a life built on power crumbles into dust. They say Los Angeles is a city of beautiful lies where wealth builds fortresses of illusion and even love becomes a transaction. But when betrayal cuts, it cuts clean through every defense. Some wounds are made in public, some scars are worn like trophies. In the rarefied air of penthouses and boardrooms, the most dangerous game isn't acquiring power, it's keeping it. And when you've climbed to the summit of ambition, there's always someone watching, calculating the precise moment to push. The wealthy believe themselves untouchable until the day they discover their greatest vulnerability was sleeping beside them all along. Trust no one. Suspect everyone. The most devastating blow always comes from the hand you never thought would strike. The Beverly Hills courthouse gleamed in the California sun, its marble steps crowded with reporters and camera crews jostling for position. Inside courtroom 12, the air conditioning hummed beneath the tension as Jennifer Lawrence stood before the bench, her posture defiant despite the gravity of the situation. Her Louboutin heels clicked against the polished floor as she shifted her weight, confidence radiating from her tailored Armani pantsuit. "Miss Lawrence, do you understand the allegations brought against you?" Judge Marianne Winters peered over her glasses, her expression unreadable. "I do, Your Honor," Jennifer replied, her voice carrying the practiced projection of a Hollywood star. "And they're completely without merit." A murmur rippled through the gallery. In the front row, Mark Cuban sat with his lawyer, Robert Downey Jr., his normally commanding presence diminished by the slump in his shoulders. 3 rows behind him, Giselle Bündchen watched with quiet dignity, one hand resting protectively on her 8-month pregnant belly. Judge Winters nodded to the court clerk. "Prosecution may present Exhibit A." The massive screen on the wall flickered to life. The timestamp showed 2:17 a.m., 3 months earlier. The grainy security footage captured Jennifer pacing in Mark's penthouse, a glass of champagne in hand. She stopped at a framed photo, picking it up with manicured fingers. The courtroom fell silent as her voice came through the speakers with crystal clarity. "Look at her," Jennifer sneered, addressing the photo of Giselle. "Belly like an elephant and still thinks she can keep her husband?" She laughed, a harsh sound that echoed in the hushed courtroom. "Stupid model thinks pregnancy is beautiful? Nobody wants to fuck a whale, sweetheart." A collective gasp filled the room. Jennifer froze, color draining from her face as she stared at the screen in horror. Camera shutters clicked in rapid succession. In the gallery, Giselle's eyes filled with tears, though she kept her chin up, refusing to break. Mark closed his eyes, his face contorted with pain. Judge Winters slammed her gavel. "Court will recess for 15 minutes. As the bailiff approached, Jennifer turned desperately toward Mark, seeking some sign of support, but he had already turned away, unable to look at her. Outside the courtroom doors, reporters were already typing frantically on their phones. Within minutes, Mistress Humiliated began trending nationwide. Sunset painted the Los Angeles skyline in shades of orange and purple, visible in its entirety through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the One, Bel Air's crown jewel and America's most expensive residence. Jennifer Lawrence stood at the edge of the infinity pool that seemed to spill directly into the horizon, her silk slip dress clinging to her curves as she swirled a glass of Dom Perignon. Mark Cuban's reflection appeared in the window as he entered, his button-down shirt casually undone at the top, fatigue evident in the lines around his eyes. "Did you tell her?" Jennifer asked without turning around, her tone casual but with an edge that cut through the evening air. Mark sighed, running a hand through his hair as he poured himself a scotch from the crystal decanter. "Giselle is pregnant." Jennifer's knuckles whitened around the stem of her glass. "And the doctor says she can't have any stress right now. There are complications. I don't care." Jennifer whirled around, hurling her champagne glass against the wall where it shattered, leaving a stain like a Rorschach test on the immaculate white paint. "You promised me." Mark, you promised you'd leave her. I'm not going to be somebody's shadow forever. Her eyes flashed dangerously. Do you have any idea what I've given up for you? The roles I've turned down because they take me away from you too long. Jen, please, just a few more months. I've heard that before. She stalked across the room, heels clicking aggressively on the marble floor. You know what, I'm done waiting. Either you tell her this week, or I will. In the corner of the room, a small security camera captured everything their argument. Jennifer's ultimatum, Mark's defeated posture, miles away, in a Beverly Hills mansion. Brad Pitt watched the live feed on his phone, concern etched across his famous features. At the same moment, along the Malibu coastline, Giselle sat on the terrace of their beach house, watching the waves crash against the shore. Her hand absently stroked her swollen belly as she gazed out at the Pacific. The ocean had always brought her peace, even in the most turbulent times. And these were certainly turbulent times. Her phone vibrated on the table beside her. Unknown number. She hesitated before answering. Hello? Giselle, you don't know me, but I think you should know the truth about your husband. The voice was female, deliberately disguised. Giselle's heart raced, but her voice remained steady. Who is this? A friend. Check your email in 5 minutes. The line went dead. Exactly 5 minutes later, Giselle's phone chimed with a new message. The subject line read simply, Mark and Jennifer. Attached were photos Mark and Jennifer entering the Four Seasons, leaving restaurants, intimate moments captured by someone who had clearly been following them. Giselle didn't cry. She'd suspected for months. Instead, she took a deep breath and made a call. Robert, it's Giselle. I need your advice. Robert Downey Jr.'s office occupied the top floor of a Century City high-rise, offering panoramic views that currently went unappreciated by Giselle Bündchen. She sat across from his desk, her pregnancy making her normally graceful posture slightly awkward. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but dry. I've known about Jennifer since last year, she admitted, her slight accent more pronounced with emotion. The way he looked at her at that fundraiser. A wife knows these things. Robert leaned forward, his expression compassionate but professional. Then why come to me now? The prenup is clear. Infidelity would... This isn't about money, Giselle interrupted. There's something Mark doesn't know. She paused and gathering herself. His company is on the verge of bankruptcy. Robert's eyebrows shot up. Cuban Enterprises? That's impossible. The AI division has been hemorrhaging money for years. Mark is brilliant but stubborn. He refused to see the warning signs. She passed a folder across the desk. Bill Gates has been positioning for a hostile takeover. If we divorce now, everything will be exposed during discovery. Mark will lose everything he's built. Robert flipped through the documents, his expression growing more serious with each page. How did you get this information? I have friends in finance, and I'm not just a pretty face. Robert. The lawyer studied her for a long moment. No, you certainly aren't. The scene shifted. 5 years earlier, Giselle, at the height of her modeling career, walking off a Paris runway to find Mark waiting backstage, his eyes filled with pride. Later that night, in their hotel suite, spreadsheets and business plans spread across the bed as she pointed out inefficiencies in his European expansion strategy. You should hire this woman, Mark had joked, kissing her forehead. You already did, she'd replied, smiling. You married her. For years, she had been the shadow architect of his success, offering guidance that he presented as his own insights to the board. It was their private arrangement. He was the face. She was the brain. Until Jennifer Lawrence had walked into their lives at a charity gala, dazzling Mark with her wit and uninhibited laugh. Back in Robert's office, the lawyer closed the folder. So you're not here to file for divorce? Giselle shook her head, one hand protectively cradling her belly. No, I'm here to save him from himself. Meanwhile, at the Soho House in West Hollywood, Brad Pitt slid into the booth across from Mark, who looked like he hadn't slept in days. You look like shit, Brad observed, signaling the waiter for 2 coffees. Thanks for the update, Mark replied dryly. Why the urgent meeting? Brad glanced around to ensure privacy before sliding his phone across the table. On the screen was a photo of Jennifer leaving the Peninsula Hotel, followed by Bill Gates emerging minutes later. They've met 3 times in the past month, Brad said quietly, and it's not a movie deal they're discussing. Mark stared at the screen, his expression hardening. You're sure about this? I have a friend in hotel security. There's more. Brad hesitated. She's been asking questions. Mark, about the AI division, about the patents, about the board members who might be persuaded to turn against you. The coffee arrived, but Mark ignored it, his mind racing. Why would she? Money, revenge, hell. Maybe Gates promised her a studio. What matters is that she's playing you. Mark's phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. Missing you. Dinner tonight. Mark confronted Jennifer that evening in the penthouse, his voice controlled but trembling with anger as he showed her the photos with Bill Gates. Business meetings, she said dismissively, lounging on the white leather sofa. I'm considering a tech biopic. Bill's consulting. At midnight in hotel lobbies. Mark paced the room. Do you think I'm an idiot? Jennifer's expression hardened. Apparently you think I am. She stood, moving toward him with dangerous grace. You've been tracking me, having me followed, and you wonder why I might want other options when you clearly don't trust me. Jennifer. No. She cut him off with a raised hand. Let me be very clear. If you don't announce our relationship and file for divorce within the week, Page 6 gets an exclusive about the famous tech billionaire who keeps a mistress while his pregnant wife sits home alone. Her threat hung in the air between them. Mark felt the ground shifting beneath his feet. Everything he thought he knew about her, suddenly suspect. Get out, he said quietly. Excuse me, get out now. Jennifer's laugh was cold as she gathered her purse. You'll regret this. Mark, no one dismisses me. That night found Mark on his yacht, the Azam, moored at Saint-Tropez. He'd flown there immediately after the confrontation, seeking escape. The Mediterranean stretched before him, but its beauty brought no peace as he drained his third whiskey. His phone showed 7 missed calls from Brad, 3 from Robert, and 1 his heart lurched from Giselle. He dialed her number, not expecting her to answer. To his surprise, she picked up on the second ring. Mark, her voice was neutral, revealing nothing. Giselle, the words stuck in his throat. I'm sorry for everything. Silence stretched between them, filled only by the sound of waves against the hull. Where are you? She finally asked. The yacht. France. Alone? The question carried weight. Yes, completely alone. Another pause. Come home, Mark. We need to talk. The line went dead before he could respond. Meanwhile, Brad Pitt had tracked down Giselle at her favorite cafe in Santa Monica. She looked up from her decaf tea, unsurprised to see him. He told you we spoke, she stated rather than asked. Brad nodded, sliding into the chair across from her. He's a mess. Good. Her tone was clipped but not cruel. Sometimes we need to break before we can rebuild. Brad studied her for a moment. You know about Jennifer and Gates. I suspected. Now I know. She sipped her tea calmly. What you may not know is that she's been in his office. After hours, Brad lowered his voice. Security footage shows her accessing his computer, copying files. Whatever Gates is planning, she's helping him get insider information. Giselle set down her cup, her composure slipping for the first time. When our last week, Tuesday night, Mark was at that conference in Seattle. She nodded slowly, pieces falling into place. The new AI prototype specs, the merger plans. Her eyes met Brad's. Thank you for telling me. What are you going to do? Giselle's expression hardened into determination. Fight back. 2 days later, Mark called a press conference at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel. After a night of soul-searching and a long conversation with Giselle, during which she revealed far more about his business situation than he'd realized. She knew he'd decided to take control of the narrative. The ballroom was packed with reporters as Mark approached the podium, Brad and Robert flanking him like sentries. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice steady. "I've called this press conference to address the rumors that have been circulating about my personal life in the future of Cuban enterprises." He scanned the room, expecting to see Jennifer somewhere in the audience, perhaps with a triumphant smile. Instead, his blood ran cold as he spotted her at the back of the room standing next to Bill Gates. She caught his eye and gave a small, mocking wave. "As you can see," she called out loudly enough for everyone to hear, "I've found a better man. Sorry, darling." Cameras swiveled toward her as reporters began shouting questions. Mark stood frozen at the podium, watching as his personal and professional lives imploded simultaneously. The following weeks brought Mark Cuban to his knees. Cuban Enterprises stock plummeted 40% after rumors of Bill Gates' impending takeover hit the market. Jennifer appeared on the cover of Vanity Fair, detailing their affair in a tell-all interview that portrayed Mark as a weak man living in his wife's shadow, revealing that Giselle had been the business genius all along. The cascade of disasters continued. Facing a liquidity crisis, Mark was forced to sell his beloved basketball team to shore up the company's finances. The media uncovered a massive debt he'd been concealing from investors. Major backers pulled their funding, sensing blood in the water. Through it all, Giselle remained strangely distant, communicating only through Robert. Mark respected her space, assuming that despite their conversation, she needed time to process his betrayal. Robert invited Mark to his office on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. "We've found something," the lawyer said without preamble as Mark settled into a chair. "Jennifer signed an NDA when she first visited your offices last year. It explicitly prohibits her from discussing any business matters or personal details about you or your family." Mark leaned forward. "And the Vanity Fair piece is a clear violation." Robert's smile was predatory. "We can sue her for breach of contract, public disclosure of private facts, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The damages could be substantial." For the first time in weeks, Mark felt a flicker of hope. "Do it. File immediately." As he left Robert's office, his phone rang Brad's number. "Giselle's in the hospital," Brad said without preamble. "Pregnancy complications. Cedars-Sinai. She's asking for you." Mark broke every traffic law in Los Angeles getting to the hospital. He found Giselle in a private room, looking pale but composed, monitoring equipment beeping steadily around her. "The baby?" he asked immediately. "Stable, for now." She gestured to the chair beside her bed. "We need to talk." Mark sat, taking her hand cautiously. When she didn't pull away, he held it tighter. "I've been gathering evidence," she said quietly, "about Jennifer and Bill, about their plan." She reached for a tablet on the bedside table, pulling up emails, photos, voice recordings. "Jennifer has been working for him for months. She was hired to seduce you, to distract you while Bill positioned for the takeover." Mark scrolled through the evidence, his shock giving way to anger. "How did you get all this?" A small smile touched Giselle's lips. "I've always been the strategic one. Remember, I had Brad help me, and that security system you installed in the penthouse. It backs up to my private server." "You're incredible," Mark whispered, a mix of admiration and regret washing over him. "I don't deserve you." "No," she agreed. "You don't. But our child deserves a father who isn't destroyed by his own foolishness." Her expression softened. "And I still love you, despite everything." Mark brought her hand to his lips. "I'll fix this. I promise." "We'll fix it together," she corrected. "Like we always have." The courthouse was packed for the preliminary hearing of Cuban v. Lawrence. Jennifer arrived in another power suit, cameras tracking her every move. She blew a kiss to the gallery, confidence undiminished. Mark and Robert sat at the plaintiff's table, faces grim. Giselle had been advised by her doctors to remain on bed rest, watching the proceedings via private live stream. The judge called the court to order, and Robert rose for his opening statement. Before he could speak, Jennifer's attorney requested permission to show evidence of Mark's character. Your Honor, Ms. Lawrence was merely stating facts about Mr. Cuban in her interview. We have testimony from former employees and associates that will demonstrate. If we're discussing character, Robert interrupted smoothly, I believe the court should see Exhibit A first. This was the moment the case exploded into the national consciousness, the security footage of Jennifer mocking Giselle's pregnancy, her cruel words echoing through the courtroom. The footage continued beyond what had been shown earlier, capturing Jennifer saying, once this divorce goes through, I'll have half his money and Bill will have his company. Poetic justice for a man who thinks with his dick. Jennifer's face went from shock to furious as the video played. In the gallery, several jurors visibly recoiled. Judge Winters called for order as the courtroom erupted. When calm was restored, Jennifer's attorney requested a brief recess to confer with his client. The judge granted 15 minutes. Mark sat motionless, the full impact of Jennifer's betrayal still washing over him. His phone buzzed with a text from Giselle. Stay strong. I love you. When court resumed, Jennifer's demeanor had changed completely. Gone was the confidence, replaced by a calculating stillness. Your Honor, her attorney began, in light of the evidence presented, Ms. Lawrence would like to propose a settlement. Robert leaned over to whisper to Mark, who shook his head firmly. We're not interested in a settlement, Robert announced. My client wants his day in court. The trial lasted 3 grueling days, during which more evidence of Jennifer's conspiracy with Bill Gates came to light. Emails revealed that Gates had promised her a production company of her own once the takeover was complete. Voice recordings captured her mocking not just Giselle but Mark as well, calling him an easy mark and a stepping stone. On the final day, Jennifer took the stand in her own defense, attempting to paint herself as a woman in love who had been manipulated by Gates. Her performance might have been convincing if not for the mountain of evidence to the contrary. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before returning a verdict in Mark's favor, awarding him $50 million in damages and requiring Jennifer to make a public apology. Outside the courthouse, Mark faced a wall of cameras and microphones. Giselle finally at his side, her pregnancy now in its final weeks. Today isn't about winning or revenge, Mark began, his arm protectively around his wife. It's about truth and consequences. Ms. Lawrence and Mr. Gates conspired not just against me, but against thousands of employees whose livelihoods depend on Cuban enterprises. He held up a flash drive. This contains evidence of illegal market manipulation by Gates International, which we've forwarded to the SEC. The truth has a way of coming to light. He turned to Giselle, his expression softening. I lost everything to realize I already had everything that matters. He kissed her gently as cameras flashed around them. Gates International stock dropped 18% by closing bell. 3 months later, in a private room at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, Giselle cradled their newborn daughter, her face glowing with exhaustion and joy. Mark sat on the edge of the bed, gazing at his child with wonder. She has your eyes, he whispered, gently touching the baby's tiny hand. And your stubborn chin, Giselle replied with a tired smile. Let's hope she gets my business sense, Mark laughed, kissing his wife's forehead. The world isn't ready for another Cuban Bunchin business genius. A nurse brought in a tablet showing the day's news. Jennifer Lawrence's fall from grace had been swift and merciless. No major studio would work with her after the scandal. Her most recent film had been shelved indefinitely. The headline read, Lawrence leaves Hollywood for extended European retreat. I almost feel sorry for her, Giselle murmured. Don't, Mark replied. She made her choices. A knock at the door heralded Brad's arrival, arms full of pink balloons and stuffed animals. Uncle Brad reporting for duty, he announced with a grin. He cooed appropriately over the baby, then pulled Mark aside. Gates is facing an SEC investigation. 3 board members have already resigned. You were right to go public with the evidence. Mark nodded. satisfaction evident in his expression. Some good news deserves celebrating. I'm going to get flowers for my girls. Back in 20. As Mark left the room, Brad's demeanor subtly shifted. He checked that Giselle was occupied with the baby before stepping into the hallway to make a call. It's done, he said quietly. Cuban doesn't suspect a thing. The plan worked perfectly. On the other end, a woman with a faint accent replied, and the company, stock has rebounded. The Gates threat is neutralized. No one's looking in our direction at all. Excellent. The woman on the other end was seated on the deck of the Azam yacht, the same yacht Mark had been forced to sell to save his company. Her blonde hair gleamed in the Mediterranean sun. Phase 1 complete. Begin Phase 2, as discussed. What about Jennifer? Brad asked. She's becoming a liability. Leave Jennifer to me, the woman replied, ending the call. As she set down her phone, an assistant approached. Ms. Ivanova, your meeting with the Russian investors is in 30 minutes. Katya Ivanova, the true architect behind everything that had happened, smiled as she gazed out at the Monaco shoreline. Tell them I'll be right there. We have much to discuss about the future of Cuban enterprises. In the hospital, Mark returned with an enormous bouquet of roses, his face alight with love for his family. Completely unaware that the game was far from over, it had only just begun. 6 months passed like a dream. Cuban enterprises not only recovered but thrived under Mark and Giselle's renewed partnership. Their daughter, Sophia, became the center of their universe, a living symbol of their second chance. The scandal with Jennifer Lawrence faded from the headlines, replaced by news of the company's innovative AI breakthroughs and expanding global influence. On a crisp autumn morning, Mark stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of their Malibu home, coffee in hand, watching the waves crash against the shore. Giselle appeared beside him, wrapping her arms around his waist. The board meeting went well yesterday, she asked, though she already knew the answer. Unanimous approval for the European expansion. He turned to face her, his expression serious. I gave you full credit this time. No more shadows. She smiled, touching his face gently. Partnership looks good on you, Mr. Cuban. Their moment was interrupted by Brad's arrival, let in by the housekeeper. He'd become a fixture in their lives since Sophia's birth, the devoted uncle who spoiled her relentlessly. Hope I'm not interrupting, he called out cheerfully, dropping a gift bag on the counter. Just a little something for my favorite goddaughter. Your only goddaughter, Mark corrected with a grin, clasping his friend's shoulder. Giselle excused herself to check on Sophia, leaving the men alone. How's Robert's case against Gates progressing? Brad asked, helping himself to coffee. Mark's expression darkened. Slowly. His lawyers are burying us in motions and delays. But we'll get there. Brad nodded sympathetically. These things take time. By the way, I've been meaning to ask, have you heard anything about Katya Ivanova? Mark frowned. Who Russian tech entrepreneur? Word is she's been acquiring companies adjacent to your space. Thought you might have her on your radar. Never heard of her, Mark shrugged. Should I be concerned? Brad waved dismissively. Probably nothing. Just keeping my ear to the ground for you. The seed planted. Brad changed the subject, but the name lingered in Mark's mind like a shadow at the edge of his vision. Later that evening, after Brad had left and Sophia was asleep, Mark found himself searching for information about Katya Ivanova. The results were sparse, a few mentions in industry publications. A blurry photo from a tech conference in Dubai. A woman in her 40s, striking rather than beautiful, with calculating eyes and platinum blonde hair. Giselle found him still at his computer near midnight. Working late. He closed the browser quickly, just checking some reports. She studied him for a moment, then nodded. Don't stay up too late. We have the charity gala tomorrow. The annual Children's Hospital Benefit Gala had once been the site of Mark's first meeting with Jennifer Lawrence. This year, he and Giselle arrived as a united front, her hand firmly in his as they walked the red carpet, Reporters shouted questions about their fairy tale reconciliation and triumph over scandal. They answered with practiced smiles and carefully worded statements. Inside, the ballroom of the Beverly Hills Hotel glittered with Hollywood royalty and business titans. Brad waved from across the room, deep in conversation with Robert. As Mark guided Giselle toward them, a flash of platinum blonde caught his eye. Katya Ivanova stood by the bar, elegant in a black Versace gown that contrasted sharply with her pale hair and fair skin. She turned as if sensing his gaze, their eyes meeting across the crowded room. She raised her champagne glass in a subtle toast before turning away. "Mark, are you listening?" Giselle's voice pulled him back to the moment. "Sorry, just thought I saw someone I knew." The evening progressed pleasantly until the auction portion of the event. Mark bid generously on several items, winning a luxury ski vacation and a signed Hollywood memorabilia collection. When a week on the world's most luxurious yacht came up for bidding, he stiffened. "Next item," the auctioneer announced, 7 days aboard the magnificent Azam, currently moored in Monaco, donated by its new owner, Miss Katya Ivanova. A photo of his former yacht appeared on the screen, the same vessel he'd been forced to sell during his darkest days. Opening bid of $50,000. Mark raised his paddle automatically, his jaw tight. "50,000 from Mr. Cuban. Do I hear 60? A voice called from the back. 100,000. Heads turned to see Katya Ivanova, champagne glass in hand, a small smile playing at her lips. 150, Mark countered immediately. Giselle placed a warning hand on his arm, but he shook it off. The bidding escalated rapidly. When it reached $500,000, only Mark and Katya remained in contention. 550,000, Mark stated firmly. Katya considered for a moment, then shook her head gracefully. "Mr. Cuban clearly misses his yacht. I concede." Applause filled the room as Mark won the auction, though victory felt hollow. As guests began to disperse, Katya approached their table. "Mr. and Mrs. Cuban," she greeted them in accented English. "Congratulations on your winning bid, a worthy cause." Up close, her eyes were an unsettling pale blue, almost transparent. "Ms. Ivanova," Mark acknowledged stiffly. "I wasn't aware you were the one who purchased the Azam. One of life's little ironies." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "I hope you'll enjoy your week aboard. Consider it a homecoming of sorts." After she glided away, Giselle turned to Mark. "Who is she?" "Someone to watch," he replied, his instincts on high alert. Brad appeared at their table, his expression tense. "I see you've met our Russian friend." "You know her?" Mark asked sharply. "Of her," Brad corrected. "She's been making waves in European tech circles. Started small but expanding rapidly." He hesitated. "There are rumors about her funding sources. Oligarchs. Maybe worse." Giselle's hand found Mark's under the table. "Perhaps we should look into her more carefully." On the drive home, Mark couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just happened, that a new game had begun without his knowledge. Monday morning found Mark in Robert's office, pacing as the lawyer listened to his concerns about Katya Ivanova. "So she bought your yacht and happened to be at the same gala," Robert summarized. "Concerning, yes, but not necessarily sinister." "It's more than that." Mark ran a hand through his hair. "The way she looked at me, like she knew something I didn't. And why would she let me win the auction after driving up the price?" Robert leaned back in his chair. "People with money often enjoy games. But if it will make you feel better, I can have my team look into her." "Do it! Discreetly!" As Mark left the office, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Curious about me, Mr. Cuban. Perhaps we should meet properly. K.I." He froze in the lobby, looking around as if she might be watching him. He showed the message to his driver, who immediately conducted a sweep of the car before they departed. At home, he found Giselle in her office, a space she had claimed officially since their reconciliation. Spreadsheets and market analyses covered her screens. "You're home early," she observed without looking up. "Something strange happened." He showed her the text. Giselle's expression hardened. "She's monitoring your phone, or someone close to us is feeding her information." The implication hung in the air between them. That evening, they conducted a thorough security sweep of the house. Finding nothing, Mark changed his phone and number, increased their security detail, and installed additional cameras. 3 days later, Robert called with preliminary findings. Katya Ivanova, born in St. Petersburg, 1980, educated at Moscow State University and Cambridge, started in cybersecurity before founding a series of increasingly successful tech ventures. Currently runs Nebula Technologies, headquartered in Cyprus. Cyprus, Mark frowned. Tax haven? Exactly. Her finances are opaque. But here's where it gets interesting. She acquired several small AI firms in the months before your trouble with Gates began. Firms that directly compete with your European targets. She was positioning against me even then, Mark concluded. Working with Gates. Unclear, but there's more. One of her earliest investors was Viktor Petrov. Should I know that name? Former KGB, now officially a business consultant, unofficially still connected to Russian intelligence. Mark felt a chill. Industrial espionage. Possibly. We're still digging. That night, Mark shared the information with Giselle over dinner after the nanny had taken Sophia upstairs. We need to consider every possibility, Giselle said thoughtfully, including that someone in our inner circle might be compromised. Brad, Mark asked, the thought painful, or Robert, or any of a dozen executives. We can't rule anyone out. Mark nodded slowly. So we trust no one but each other. Like old times, she agreed, a hint of their former partnership sparking in her eyes. They decided on a strategy. Mark would publicly pursue the lawsuit against Gates, while Giselle quietly investigated Ivanova. They would feed different information to different members of their team to see what leaked. A week later, their trap produced results. Mark had told Brad, and only Brad, about a potential acquisition in Finland. Within days, Nebula Technologies announced the purchase of the same company. It has to be Brad, Mark said, pacing their bedroom that night. But why? We've been friends for 20 years. Money, Giselle suggested. Blackmail. Or maybe he genuinely believes he's helping you somehow. By betraying me to a Russian corporate raider, Giselle shook her head. We're missing something. The next day, Mark invited Brad for a private lunch at his club. They sat in a secluded corner. Years of friendship suddenly strained by unspoken suspicion. How's the Gates lawsuit progressing? Brad asked casually. Actually, we're considering dropping it. Mark lied, watching carefully. Robert thinks we might be better off focusing on the future rather than the past. Brad's expression flickered momentarily. Really, after everything Jennifer and Gates did, sometimes it's better to move on. Mark shrugged, then deliberately changed the subject. By the way, have you heard anything more about that Russian woman Ivanova? Nothing significant. Brad's answer came too quickly. Why? Just curious. She seemed interesting. Back at home, Mark reported the conversation to Giselle. He's definitely hiding something. He'll tell her we're dropping the lawsuit, which we're not. Let's see what happens. They didn't have to wait long. That evening, Katya Ivanova issued a press release announcing a strategic partnership with Gates International, their stocks surging on the news. She thinks we're backing down, Giselle observed. She's consolidating her position with Gates. But to what end? Mark wondered. What does she really want? The answer came in the form of an invitation delivered the next morning by private courier, Mr. and Mrs. Cuban are cordially invited to discuss the future of Cuban enterprises aboard the Azam, Monaco. This weekend, transportation will be arranged. Katya Ivanova. It's a trap, Giselle stated flatly. Obviously, Mark agreed, but it might be our only chance to find out what she's really after. After much debate, they decided to accept with conditions they would bring their own security team. Stay in a hotel rather than on the yacht, and meet only in public places. Ivanova agreed to their terms with a cryptic response. Caution is the parent of safety. I look forward to our chess game. Monaco greeted them with perfect Mediterranean weather, the harbor glittering with yachts that paled in comparison to the Azam. From their hotel balcony at the Hotel de Paris, Mark could see his former vessel dominating the marina, a Russian flag now flying where his American one had once been. "Ready?" Giselle asked, elegant in a simple white sundress that belied her razor-sharp focus. "As I'll ever be." Their security team escorted them to the yacht, where they were met by Ivanova herself, rather than crew members. "Welcome back, Mr. Cuban," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mrs. Cuban, you are even more beautiful than your photographs suggest." She led them to the upper deck, where a table was set for lunch. The space had been redecorated in minimalist Slavic style, erasing Mark's personal touches. "You've changed her," Mark commented, running his hand along a railing that had once been mahogany but was now sleek steel. "I make everything I acquire my own," Ivanova replied. "It's my nature." Over lunch, they engaged in careful conversation about neutral topics. The Monaco social scene, the weather, the cuisine. Finally, as dessert was served, Mark addressed the elephant in the room. "Why did you invite us here, Ms. Ivanova? What do you want?" She dabbed her lips with a napkin before answering. "Direct? I appreciate that. Very well. I want what you have, Mr. Cuban. Not just your company, but your legacy." "Why?" Giselle interjected. "You clearly have your own success." Katya turned her pale gaze to Giselle. "Because some of us must build our empires from nothing, in hostile territory, while others like your husband are born into a world that welcomes them with open arms." "I built my company from scratch," Mark objected. "Did you?" Katya smiled coldly. "With American investors eager to fund you, with a market that trusted you implicitly, with a wife who provided the true business genius behind your success." Mark and Giselle exchanged glances, unsettled by her knowledge of their private dynamic. "What exactly are you proposing?" Mark asked carefully. "An orderly transition. You will announce your retirement due to family priorities. Your board will accept my holding company's tender offer. You walk away wealthy. I step into your place without the messiness of a hostile takeover. And if we refuse, then I continue what Gates began, but with greater skill and fewer scruples." Her smile remained in place. "Ask yourself, how did Jennifer Lawrence know exactly when and where to be with Gates to hurt you most? How did those financial troubles suddenly appear? Who do you think provided Gates with his strategy?" The implications hit Mark like a physical blow. "You were behind it all, from the beginning." "Gates was a fool who thought he was using me," Katya confirmed. "Just as Jennifer thought she was using you. Puppets. All of you." "Not all," Giselle said quietly, her voice steel beneath silk. "You made a crucial mistake, Ms. Ivanova." "Oh, do enlighten me." "You assumed I was just another trophy wife, that Mark was the only opponent worth considering." Giselle leaned forward. "But I've been 3 steps ahead of you since Saint Tropez." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Katya's face. "What are you talking about? Why do you think your partnership announcement with Gates caused such a minimal stock impact on our company? Why has the SEC suddenly taken interest in Nebula's Cypriot banking arrangements? Why did your Moscow office receive a surprise tax audit last week?" Mark looked at his wife in amazement as she continued. "And most importantly, why do you think Brad has been feeding you exactly the information we wanted you to have?" Katya's composure cracked. "Brad works for me, has for months." "Brad works for whoever pays him best," Giselle corrected. "And right now, that's us." On cue, Mark's phone chimed with a message from Brad. "Package delivered to SEC. Evidence secured." Mark turned the phone so Katya could see the message. "Your association with Viktor Petrov, your offshore accounts, your industrial espionage operation." all documented and now in the hands of authorities in 3 countries. Katya's face hardened as she realized the trap. You think you've won, this is merely one battle? Perhaps, Giselle acknowledged, but it's the decisive one. She stood, signaling the end of the meeting. Enjoy the yacht while you can. I suspect your legal troubles will necessitate its sale soon. As they left the yacht, Katya called after them. You think Brad is loyal to you? Ask him about the blonde woman he meets at the Chateau Marmont every month. Ask him who really sent those photos of Mark and Jennifer to Giselle in the first place. Mark hesitated, but Giselle pulled him along. She's desperate. Ignore her. Back in their hotel suite, Mark paced nervously. What if she's telling the truth about Brad? She's trying to divide us. Classic tactic. Giselle was already on her laptop, monitoring the financial fallout as news of the SEC investigation into Nebula Technologies broke. But how can we be sure? Giselle looked up, her expression softening. We can't be completely sure of anyone except each other. That's the lesson in all this. Mark sat beside her, taking her hand. When did you start investigating her? The moment Brad mentioned her name. It was too convenient, too calculated. I had Robert's associate, not Robert himself, look into her while we fed Brad false information. She squeezed his hand. I didn't tell you everything because I needed your reactions to be genuine. The perfect partner in crime, Mark said with admiration. In business, she corrected with a smile. Always in business. As they prepared to return to Los Angeles the next day, news broke that Katya Ivanova had been detained by Monegasque authorities at the request of American officials. Gates International stock plummeted on rumors of its connection to the widening scandal. On the private jet home, Mark finally asked the question that had been bothering him. What about the blonde woman Brad supposedly meets? Giselle looked up from her book. What about her? Should we find out who she is, if it helps you sleep at night? She returned to her reading, seemingly unconcerned. Life settled into a new normal. Cuban enterprises thrived under their joint leadership, with Giselle now officially recognized as co-CEO. The Gates lawsuit concluded with a substantial settlement in their favor. Jennifer Lawrence attempted a comeback with a small independent film that was critically panned. Katya Ivanova fought extradition from Monaco, her empire crumbling around her. Sophia's first birthday approached, and they planned an intimate celebration at their Malibu home, family only, with the exception of Brad, who had become as much a fixture in their lives as ever. The morning of the party, Mark found Brad on the beach below their house, staring out at the ocean. Penny for your thoughts, Mark said, joining him. Just reflecting on what a crazy year it's been, Brad replied. From the brink of disaster to the top of the world. Mark studied his friend's profile. We never really talked about your role in all this. With Ivanova. Brad sighed. I did what I had to do. For you. By pretending to work for her while actually working for us. Something like that. Brad seemed uncomfortable. Look, it's Sophia's birthday. Let's not dwell on the past. Mark nodded, but the conversation left him uneasy. The party was a joyful affair. Sophia, adorable in a pink dress, smashed her cake and opened presents with more interest in the wrapping paper than the gifts. Brad presented her with a custom-made dollhouse replica of their Malibu home, accurate down to the tiniest detail. This must have taken months, Giselle remarked, examining the miniature furniture. I commissioned it when she was born, Brad explained. Only the best for my goddaughter. As the evening wound down, Brad received a phone call and stepped outside to take it. Mark, helping the nanny clean up, glanced out the window to see Brad engaged in an intense conversation. His back turned. Curiosity and lingering suspicion prompted Mark to move closer to the open window. It's done, he heard Brad say. They don't suspect anything. Yes, I'll keep you updated. I know how important this is to you. Brad ended the call and turned, catching Mark watching him. For a moment, something unreadable flashed across his face before he smiled and waved. That night, after Sophia was asleep, Mark shared what he'd overheard with Giselle. I think Katya was telling the truth. Brad is still working for someone else. Giselle set down her tablet. I know. You know, Mark stared at her. How long have you known? Since the beginning. She met his gaze steadily. Since before Jennifer. Before all of it. Who is he working for? Instead of answering, Giselle went to her closet and returned with a small lockbox. She entered a combination and removed a flash drive. There are some things I haven't told you. Mark, things I thought you were better off not knowing. She inserted the drive into her laptop and turned it to face him. On the screen was a video of Brad meeting with a blonde woman at the Chateau Marmont, dated 3 years earlier. The woman's face was hidden, but there was something familiar about her posture. Who is she? Mark asked, though a sinking feeling told him he already knew. Giselle reached over and advanced the video. The woman turned, her face finally visible. Mark felt the floor drop from beneath him. That's you, with a blonde wig. Yes, you and Brad, you've been working together all this time against me. Not against you, Giselle corrected gently. For you, for us. She explained Brad had come to her 3 years ago with evidence that several board members were plotting to oust Mark. Together, they had created a shadow operation to protect his position, feeding him selected information, guiding his decisions without his knowledge. The Jennifer situation, was that part of your plan too? Mark asked, his voice hollow. No, that was unexpected. But once it happened, we used it. The photos sent to me. That was Brad. Yes, we needed you to hit rock bottom before you could rise again. Stronger. And Katya, a necessary final test. We needed to be sure you would put family before pride, partnership before ego. Giselle took his hands. You passed, Mark. With flying colors. He pulled away, standing to pace the room. All this time, you've been manipulating me, making decisions behind my back, treating me like a child who can't be trusted with the truth. I was protecting you. By lying to me, by conspiring with my best friend against me. For you, she insisted. Everything I've done has been for our family, for our future. Mark stared at her, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time. Who are you, really? I'm the woman who loves you, who has sacrificed everything for you, who has built and protected our empire while you took the credit. Her voice remained calm, but her eyes flashed. I'm the woman who saved you from Jennifer, from Gates, from Katya, and most of all, from yourself. The truth hung between them like a physical presence. Mark felt decades of certainty crumbling beneath a new reality. He had never been the master strategist, the business genius. He had been the figurehead all along. I need some air, he said finally, heading for the door. Mark, Giselle's voice stopped him. Nothing changes. You know, we're still partners. We're still a family. The only difference is now you know the truth. He turned to look at her one last time before leaving. The truth is, I never really knew you at all. Mark drove aimlessly through the night, eventually finding himself at the beach near Santa Monica Pier. He sat on the sand, watching the waves crash in the darkness, trying to reconcile the woman he thought he had married with the puppet master she had revealed herself to be. His phone buzzed with a text from Brad. She told you, talk to me before you do anything. Please. He ignored it, along with the 3 calls from Giselle that followed. As dawn broke over the Pacific, Mark came to a decision. He drove home, packed a bag, and kissed his sleeping daughter on the forehead. He left a note for Giselle. I need time. Take care of Sophia. I'll be in touch. He was halfway to the airport when his phone rang again. Robert's number this time. Whatever it is, I'm not interested, Mark answered flatly. You'll want to hear this, Robert insisted. Katya Ivanova was found dead in her Monaco jail cell this morning. Apparent suicide. Mark pulled to the side of the road. There's more. Monaco authorities found documents in her possession contingency files set to release upon her death. They implicate Brad in a conspiracy dating back years. He's been taken in for questioning by the FBI. Mark's mind raced. What kind of conspiracy? Industrial espionage, financial fraud, working for a foreign power. It's bad. Mark, really bad. That's impossible. Brad was working with Giselle. Giselle. Robert sounded genuinely confused. What are you talking about? Mark hesitated, suddenly uncertain. She told me last night. She and Brad have been working together for years, managing things behind the scenes. There was a long pause before Robert responded. Mark, I need you to listen carefully. Come to my office immediately. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Not even Giselle. Why? What's going on? I don't think we should discuss this over the phone. Just come now. Sakura. Mark redirected to Robert's office, his head spinning with possibilities, each more disturbing than the last. Robert was waiting alone, his office door locked behind Mark as he entered. Sit down, the lawyer instructed, his expression grave. What exactly did Giselle tell you last night? Mark recounted the conversation, the video, the revelation of years of manipulation. Robert listened without interrupting, then opened his laptop. Before I show you this, I want you to know that I only discovered it this morning. When Monaco authorities contacted me, he turned the screen toward Mark. On it was a document, a detailed dossier on Giselle Bündchen, not the supermodel turned business partner that Mark had married, but a completely different history, born Galina Berezovsky in Odessa, Ukraine. Trained by Russian intelligence, deep cover operative placed years ago to target promising American tech entrepreneurs. This can't be real, Mark whispered. But even as he said it, pieces began falling into place, her strategic brilliance, her facility with languages, her insistence on staying out of photographs early in their relationship. According to these files, she and Katya Ivanova were handlers for the same network. Robert continued. Brad was their asset, turned years ago through blackmail. The Jennifer affair, the Gates takeover attempt, all of it was orchestrated to position Cuban enterprises for eventual acquisition by Russian interests. But why tell me the truth now? Why reveal her role? Robert's expression was grim. I believe something went wrong. Katya's death wasn't suicide. It was a cleanup operation. And now Giselle is improvising, trying to maintain control of you while the larger network regroups. Mark felt physically ill. Sophia is safe for now, but we need to move quickly. I've arranged for secure transportation to take you to a safe house. The FBI will meet us there. As they prepared to leave, Mark's phone rang again. Giselle, against Robert's warnings, he answered and put it on speaker. Mark, where are you? Her voice was tight with concern. I've been trying to reach you for hours. I needed space to think, he replied carefully. After last night's revelations, I understand, but you need to come home now. Brad's been arrested. There's something very wrong happening. What do you mean? The story they're telling about him, about me, it's all fabricated. Someone is trying to destroy us. Mark, all of us. Robert shook his head vigorously, mouthing, don't believe her. Who would do that? Mark asked, stalling. I don't know yet, but I have suspicions. She paused. Is Robert with you? Mark froze, looking at Robert in alarm. He hadn't told her he was meeting the lawyer. Why would you ask that? He countered. Because he's not answering his phone, and his secretary said he had an early meeting. Her voice hardened. Mark, listen to me very carefully. If you're with Robert, you're in danger. He's not who you think he is. Robert scribbled a note. She's desperate, trying to turn you against me. I'm coming home, Mark said finally. We'll talk then. Promise me you'll come directly home. No stops. I promise. After hanging up, Mark turned to Robert. What if she's telling the truth? What if these files are the fabrication? Think, Mark, who has been manipulating you for years by her own admission, who kept you in the dark, who controlled Brad. Robert gathered his papers. The FBI will sort this out. But right now, we need to get you to safety. As they headed for the parking garage, Mark's mind raced through years of memories, trying to separate truth from fiction. Had any of it been real? His marriage, his success, even his daughter, what parts of his life truly belonged to him? They reached Robert's car, a black Audi with tinted windows. As Robert moved to unlock it, Mark noticed something, a small tattoo on the lawyer's wrist, momentarily visible as his sleeve rode up. A geometric symbol he'd seen once before, in the dossier on Giselle's laptop. The mark of the same network. In that moment, Mark made his choice. I forgot something in your office. The thumb drive. Robert frowned. What thumb drive? The one with the backup of Katya's files. It's in my jacket, which I left on your chair. We don't have time. It's evidence. Robert, we need it. Reluctantly, Robert agreed to retrieve it, leaving Mark alone in the garage. The moment he disappeared into the elevator, Mark ran. He didn't go home. He didn't go to the FBI. Instead, he drove to the one place no one would look for him, Jennifer Lawrence's abandoned beach house in Malibu, which had sat empty since the scandal broke. Breaking in through a back door, Mark found the house dusty but intact. He powered up his phone long enough to send one text to Giselle. Taking Sophia to my mother's. We'll call when safe. Then he turned off the phone, removed its battery, and began to plan. He needed answers, real answers, and he wouldn't get them from either Giselle or Robert. There was only one person who might tell him the unvarnished truth. Now that she had nothing left to lose, he had to find Jennifer Lawrence. The search took 3 days, using cash only, disguising himself with a beard and glasses. Mark tracked her to a small apartment in Silver Lake. When she opened the door, her eyes widened in shock. You have a lot of nerve showing up here, she said, but stepped aside to let him in. The apartment was a far cry from her former luxury. Modest furnishings, generic decor, a half-empty bottle of vodka on the coffee table. I need the truth, Jennifer, all of it. She laughed bitterly. Now you want the truth after you destroyed my life. After you helped destroy mine, he countered. But I think we were both pawns in someone else's game. Something in his tone made her pause. She studied him for a long moment before pouring 2 glasses of vodka. What do you want to know? Who approached you first? Was it Gates, Katya, or someone else? Jennifer took a long drink. Robert. It was Robert who introduced me to Gates. Said it would be a lucrative partnership for both of us. Mark nodded, pieces falling into place. And Giselle? What do you know about her? Only what Robert told me, that she was the real power behind your throne. That she'd discard you once she no longer needed your face for the company. Jennifer's expression softened slightly. For what it's worth, I did care for you, Mark, in my way, just not enough to refuse their offer. I have ambitions too, she shrugged. Besides, they made it clear refusal wasn't an option. By the time he left Jennifer's apartment, night had fallen. His next move was clear but dangerous. He needed to get to Sophia and disappear at least until he could determine who was telling the truth. He returned to the beach house to collect his few belongings, only to find the back door ajar. Heart pounding, he considered fleeing. But if someone had found him, they could be waiting anywhere. Steeling himself, he entered cautiously. The living room was dark, but he could make out a figure sitting in the armchair. I've been waiting for you, Brad said, turning on the lamp beside him. Mark tensed, ready to fight or run. How did you find me? I know you, Mark, better than anyone. Brad looked exhausted, his normally perfect appearance disheveled. Better than Giselle, better than Robert. They said you were arrested. I was, then I wasn't. Brad's smile was grim. Turns out having friends in the FBI is useful when you're being framed as a foreign agent. So you're not working for the Russians? Brad laughed humorlessly. Is that what they're saying now? No, Mark, I'm not working for the Russians. Neither is Giselle. Then explain the video. Explain what she told me. I can't, not fully, but I can tell you this: Giselle loves you. Everything she's done, however misguided, has been to protect you and Sophia. From what? Brad hesitated. From the same people who killed Katya? The same people who are trying to frame me. The same people who want control of your AI research. Who? Brad stopped talking in circles. I can't tell you. It's not safe. Brad stood, moving toward the door. But Giselle can go home. Mark, let her explain. If you don't believe her then, I'll help you and Sophia disappear. You have my word. After Brad left, Mark sat alone in the darkened house, weighing his options. Finally, he made his decision. The drive home to Malibu took 40 minutes. The house was lit up as he approached, security visible at the gates. They recognized him immediately and waved him through with obvious relief. Inside, he found Giselle in the nursery, watching over a sleeping Sophia. She turned as he entered, her face showing a complex mix of emotions: relief, fear, determination. You came back, she said simply. I need the truth, all of it. No more half-truths, no more manipulations. She nodded, gesturing for him to follow her to their bedroom, where they could talk without disturbing Sophia. Once there, she opened a hidden safe behind a painting one he hadn't known existed and removed a thick file and a small recording device. Before I explain, you need to know something, she began, her voice steady. I love you. I have always loved you, and everything I've done has been to protect what we built together, including lying to me for our entire marriage. Yes, she met his gaze unflinchingly. Sometimes love means protecting someone from truths that would destroy them. I'm listening. Giselle took a deep breath and began her story. Not the tale of a Russian spy, but something equally fantastic and terrifying. Robert wasn't just his lawyer. He was a member of a powerful cabal of tech investors and government officials who had been steering the development of AI technology for decades. They had identified Mark early as a potential asset, brilliant but malleable, ambitious but naive. They wanted your research, your innovations, but under their control, Giselle explained. They placed people in your life, investors, friends, even romantic interests to guide your decisions. Including you, Mark asked, his heart breaking all over again. No, I was an unexpected variable. I fell in love with you, and that wasn't in their plan. She smiled sadly. When I discovered what was happening, I created my own counter-operation with Brad. We've been fighting them from the inside for years. She played the recording device. On it was a conversation between Robert and several unnamed men, discussing the Cuban situation and the need to acquire the asset permanently now that the wife problem had been addressed. This was recorded yesterday, Giselle said quietly. They're planning to eliminate me and take control of you and the company. Katya was working with us. Her death was staged to get her to safety. But they're on to the deception. Mark's head spun with the implications. If this is true, if any of this is true, we need to disappear. Tonight, the three of us. Giselle took his hands. I've prepared for this contingency. New identities, accounts they can't trace, a place they'll never find us. But you have to trust me. Mark, one last time. He searched her eyes, looking for any sign of deception. How do I know this isn't another manipulation? You can't. Her grip tightened. But ask yourself this, who has more to gain from controlling you? Me, who has stood beside you for years, who has given you a child and a life together, or Robert, who has been quietly steering your company's legal decisions since the beginning. Outside, a car pulled into the driveway, headlights sweeping across the bedroom windows. We're out of time, Giselle whispered. It's your choice. Mark, trust me or trust them. In that moment, facing the ultimate question of faith, Mark made his decision. He squeezed Giselle's hands and nodded. Let's go get our daughter. As they moved toward the nursery, the front door opened. Robert's voice called out, Mark, are you home? We need to talk. Mark and Giselle exchanged glances. The final game had begun. 1 year later, the small cafe in Barcelona was crowded with Sunday morning patrons. At a corner table, a man with a neatly trimmed beard sat reading a newspaper, occasionally glancing at his watch. To casual observers, he might have been any expatriate American enjoying the Mediterranean lifestyle. A woman approached his table, stylish in a simple sundress, a wide-brimmed hat shading her face. A toddler girl clutched her hand, dark curls bouncing as she walked. "Sorry we're late," the woman said in perfect Catalan. "Someone insisted on feeding the pigeons in the plaza." The man smiled, folding his newspaper. "Some things are worth waiting for." As the woman settled the child with crayons and paper, she leaned close to her husband. "Any news?" Mark, now known locally as Matthew Collins, shook his head slightly. "Robert's trial continues. Brad's testimony has been devastating to their case." Giselle, now Elena Collins, nodded, relief visible in her eyes. "And the board voted yesterday. Complete restructuring, new leadership." He took her hand across the table. "It's really over." She squeezed his fingers. "Nothing is ever completely over, my love. But for now, we're safe." Their daughter looked up from her drawing, offering it proudly to her father. "Look, Papa." Mark accepted the colorful scribble with exaggerated admiration. "It's beautiful. Sophia, the most beautiful picture in all of Spain." As his family chatted about their plans for the day, Mark's gaze drifted to the street outside. A blonde woman passed by, momentarily catching his attention, a ghost of memories not quite laid to rest. Giselle noticed his distraction. "Everything all right?" He turned back to her, to the life they had rebuilt from the ashes of betrayal and manipulation. A life that, despite its foundation of secrets, had somehow grown into something genuine. "Everything is perfect," he assured her, and in that moment, he almost believed it. But as he helped Sophia with her crayons, a notification flashed on his phone, a news alert he'd set up months ago. He angled the screen away from Giselle to read the headline, "Breaking Key Witness in Cuban Enterprises, Conspiracy Found Dead." Brad's face stared back at him from the screen. Alongside the words, "Apparent Suicide," Mark quietly cleared the notification. Some truths, he had learned, were better kept as secrets. Some games never truly ended. He looked up at his wife, his partner, his co-conspirator, the mother of his child, and smiled. "What shall we do today?" As Giselle outlined their plans for a day at the beach, Mark wondered, not for the first time, whether he had made the right choice that night, whether the woman across from him was his savior or his most skillful manipulator. In the end, perhaps it didn't matter. In a world of shadows and lies, they had carved out something real, a family, a love, a future, and sometimes that was enough.